Professional curiosity in social work practice. Why professional curiosity is important. This is the second presentation of 6 that looks at professional curiosity. Here I will be discussing why professional curiosity is important. Professional curiosity is important because we need to avoid missing things. Quite often, the contact social workers have with families is quite fleeting, especially in child protection investigations. There is a timescale to do these and to get to decisions. The term professionally curious has come to our attention more often than not through things such as child practice reviews. However, it is important to think of professional curiosity as being relevant to all casework. In child practice reviews, there is specific focus on cases where something hasn't worked and the child has died or has been seriously harmed. We often hear about 2 things: the need for people to share information better, and increasingly, to be more professionally curious. Reviewers usually look back at these cases and, with the benefit of hindsight, see opportunities that may not have been visible at the time. Often, the reviews identify more professional curiosity as something that may have helped. A good example would be an injury to a child and a practitioner accepting the explanation given by the parents. So, why do we need to be professionally curious? Well, one of the reasons is to avoid missing important things. So some of the keys to this is not to take things at face value, not making assumptions, and not jumping to the wrong conclusions. In the first presentation, we emphasised the point that we only usually talk about professional curiosity when it's perceived to have not been done. We called it "you missed a bit." We need to also recognise that we are professionally curious all the time. We do it successfully, but that it isn't acknowledged. This means that we already have the skills, and these skills can be improved and developed. Some of these reviews have been very high profile. A few days before baby Peter's death, he was seen by a social worker. His face was covered in chocolate. The social worker asked for this to be cleaned, and someone took him to another room to do so. They didn't return before the social worker left, and his face was not checked. Without knowing about the exact circumstances, asking someone to clean off the chocolate may have been a good example of being professionally curious, but we are unsure why the worker didn't wait to see the child afterwards. We could speculate why that wasn't followed through. When we look at some findings and recommendations from child practice reviews, they are often directed at policies, procedures, and organisations rather than individuals. Yet, it is the sum of decisions and actions of individual practitioners that create the circumstances where such reviews are commissioned. We can identify some of the organisational barriers. For example, this isn't our service's responsibility, it's a matter for health. Or other agencies may say, that's for social services to check. As resources are being rationed, we do see people behaving in ways that are more protective of their agency, which is in contrast with a common vision that child protection is everybody's business. So, if we say we need to be professionally curious to avoid missing something, the challenge is that all the agencies need to make sure we aren't missing something collectively. We also see the culture in some organisations of a fear of making mistakes and of being criticised. That will change behaviour, and practitioners may practice defensively. What about using a strengths-based approach as a model of practice? Some reviews have suggested that some practitioners avoided challenging or pointing out to families' problems because the organisational mantra was to amplify strengths and successes. So sometimes organisations have a culture or create specific policies or procedures that may hinder curiosity, or it may be that they underestimate the way their arrangements are interpreted by practitioners and what they think they should be doing. We also need to acknowledge that some parents or carers will actively prevent practitioners from talking to their children. They will also give the impression of cooperation and collaboration to detract from concerns and stifle investigations. This is now called disguised compliance, and we'll come back to this theme later in these presentations. Lord Laming had chaired the inquiry into the death of Victoria Climbié and published his report in 2003. Following the death of baby Peter, he made comments about the lengths people who deliberately harm children go to disguise what they have done. He said, "They become very clever at diverting attention away from what has happened to the child. Therefore, people who work in this field, whether health visitors, police officers, social workers, whatever, have to recognise this in their evidence gathering. They have to be sceptical, they have to be streetwise, and they have to be courageous." Lord Laming is reminding us of the challenge. Not only is it difficult to know what is happening in families, especially when they are under threat, sometimes people are actively trying to deceive you. These are the external factors we are working with. We also face several internal factors that impact on our ability to remain curious long enough. These include fixed thinking, keeping thinking the same way about things, not questioning yourself that you may be wrong or that you don't know something or you don't understand what is going on. Perceptual bias, that the way we see things are influenced by the assumptions we have about what we expect to happen. And lastly is confirmation bias, that we look out for things that merely confirm what we thought already, that we are looking to prove we were right. You can imagine how easy each of these could be in child protection. If you have the hypothesis right at the beginning about why something is happening, or someone has influenced you about what they think is going on. You can't ignore this, of course. Assessment and analysis are based on testing hypothesis and gathering information from other people. But I think we need to hold on to our hypothesis and recall what other people have said, but to do so lightly, thinking there may be more to it. I may not have got it clear in my mind yet. This brings us to the end of this presentation. In the next two presentations, we will be looking at how to apply professional curiosity to practice. Thank you.